So these are some pretty crazy and tumultuous times we're living in right now, and I'm angry and frustrated, but also I find it challenging to navigate these waters as a white person speaking from a position of privilege, but I felt like I'd be remiss if I didn't weigh in and give you my 2 cents on a couple of areas that are really, really plaguing me and maybe can shed some light for some people. So this is a bit of a break from my normal content, but I wanted to find a way that I could contribute meaningfully. And for me right now, it's perhaps just talking about it, and especially talking about it with people who just don't seem to get it. This video may turn out to be longer than expected, but there's so much to say, or so much more I'm more confident to say now. So please bear with me and take it for what it's worth. So I suppose this video is for those people who, one, don't agree that there's racism today or systemic racism, and for those people that are responding to the Black Lives Matter movement with all lives matter, and thinking that's a valid statement or a worthy statement at this time. Racism isn't something that's long ago. Racism is happening today. And for those that don't think systemic racism exists, it might not be overt. It's often in the shadows. It's in the system. It's running underneath. And it's kind of like dust in the air. We're all breathing it in. And we don't always see it either. We just breathe it in and we just breathe it in. And until somebody shines a light on it and says, whoa, look at all that dust, can we then start to address it? And I think that's what's happening now, is that we're shining a light. People are shining a light on this and saying, do you see what's going on? And now that we see all this dust, how do we clean it? How do we get it out of the air? I like to think that I'm generally aware of a lot of the white privilege that I have, and I'm sure there's countless other ways that I'm oblivious to some of it as well. But I know that I have an invisible backpack that I get to carry around with me that allows me to move through life in a different way than many others. I don't need to worry about walking down the street and being followed. I don't need to worry about whether or not my skin color is going to affect me in a job interview. I don't need to worry that if I do get pulled over by the police that things are going to turn sour very quickly. These are things I don't need to worry about. I don't need to worry about my kids and how they navigate their way through life because they have a life that is full of white privilege. So please know that I feel like I'm speaking from that position of privilege, and take that for what it's worth. Life is hard for us all at times, but I have it easier in so many ways. And the color of my skin doesn't add any additional weight or make it harder to get through life. And that's exactly what white privilege is. I have benefits because of the color of my skin. So I think the brutal killing of George Floyd was a catalyst for this. And there's a long list of injustices that have happened, and it seems like they pop up in the news and people are outraged, and then it dissipates and fades away. But perhaps now the world is noticing, and the world's going to step up. And I'm so hopeful that as a community takes notice, and as a country takes notice, and the larger world takes notice, and that we as a society, a world starts to take notice of these injustices, and that we work towards meaningful change. It's time for us to stop being complacent and letting these things continue and go on and on. Yuval Noah Harari says, consistency is the playground of dull minds, and we should be working for change here. We hear in the news about the major incidents like George Floyd or Trayvon Martin, but how many other incidents are there that are unreported, that just go on? And yeah, we can say, well, every incident has its own unique factors, it's a unique situation, but there are common denominators here. There's a saying that's sometimes attributed to Mark Twain, and whether it is or it isn't is irrelevant, but it's that history may not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And these types of things have been going on over and over and over again, and the pattern keeps on repeating, and it's time for change. And it's been time for change for a long time. And these protests, they're not in response to just the latest incident. And I watched Dave Chappelle's 846 video the other day, and he said, this Black Lives Matter protest is not just because of George Floyd, it's because of all of this. It's because of all of the things that have built up over time. And it comes from a context of evidence in which black lives didn't matter or mattered less. The same can be said about Indigenous lives here in Canada. I suppose one of my biggest beefs right now is when, in response to Black Lives Matter, people respond with, well, no, all lives matter. And I know some people are trying to be facetious, but that humor is kind of lost on me in this moment. And then there are people that are legit believers in that. And some of these people are my friends. Some of them are people that I've looked up to and I respect as humans. People that I respect in so many areas of life. people that I think should know better than to have that sort of response. For some of you people who are responding with all lives matter when it comes to the Black Lives Matter protests, maybe I can offer you a couple of analogies that will explain to you why it's inappropriate, not relevant to respond in that way. The first one is this broken legs example. You've got a guy obviously hurt on the floor, complaining that his legs are broken. And you have a bystander on the other side going, well, wait a minute, what about my legs? Well, your legs aren't broken. Your legs work just fine. Let's help the people who need it. Most people would agree that rainforests are in danger. So if we protest and we are asking people to save the rainforests, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to then have somebody stand up and go, no, wait a minute, save all forests. They're all equally important. The rainforests are the ones that are in danger currently. They are in imminent danger. Here's another analogy. Fire department gets a call about a house fire, so they show up to the subdivision. House is on fire, so they try to fight the fire with water. Yet you have bystanders on the side yelling, what about my house? We deserve water too. But your house isn't the one on fire. There's a car accident. People are injured. First responders show up. Who are they going to give care to? The people with bumps and bruises, or the people with more severe trauma? Most of us just have the bumps and bruises. Other people have severe trauma. They need attention and they need care. That's what this situation is all about. Should we be caring about all things? Well, of course we should. But this deserves our attention now. There's more pressing and immediate needs now. I do think one thing we need to be careful of is that silence is not necessarily being complicit. Sometimes in the moment, people don't know what to say or how to respond. And sometimes you have to be careful what you say and how you say it. So just because people are silent doesn't mean they are complicit or in agreement with something. They're just not sure how to deal with it at the time. I mean, what do I say? As a white person, how do I protest? And at the same time, there are people who will be silent on purpose and say, it's not my fight, I'm not involved. And for those people, question why. Why are you not involved? Why does this not concern you? The Black Lives Matter movement is powerful right now, and it's got a lot of flavor. And if you take an analogy like gum, let's chew this flavor. Let's chew this gum. Don't hijack it with other causes. Don't hijack it with other things. We don't want to be adding different flavors to the gum, and then we don't even know what we're chewing on. So I guess at the end of this, to my friends who are and have been oppressed, I'm with you. And for everybody, if I can light a candle in my corner of the world, maybe you can light a candle in your corner too, and we can shed some light on this. Thanks for listening. There are no easy answers. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of work. It's not an easy road, but this is something we definitely need to get behind.